Hi, I'm Kim Rayner, and I want to welcome you to episode 15 of All About Spirit's Life After Cancer. And, when we deal with cancer, life throws us a lot of different curveballs. It has to do with finances, it has to do with relationships, it has to do with sex life after cancer, and sometimes it even has to do with facing death after cancer. So today's episode, number 14, is a 5-point guide on how to start having tough conversations when you're dealing with cancer survivors and surviving in situations. And today's episode is dedicated to two friends of mine who both reached out to me over the past couple of weeks and said, I need to have a hard conversation and I don't even know how to start it. I feel really uncomfortable and I don't even know what to do with the beginning of the conversation. So that's what today's episode is about, and it's dedicated to my two friends, Becky and Dodie. So the first thing that I want to say about that is, a lot of times we really know when it's time to have the conversation. Oh, hi, Becky. I'm glad you're here today. We really know when it's time to have the conversation. We get this gut check, or we get this little voice that tells us, oh, I probably need to talk to this person about this, or I'd really like to talk to this person about this, but I'm not sure how. Sometimes that shows up as a little tickle. Sometimes it shows up as kind of a prickly feeling when we think about them or we walk past them. And, I think the biggest thing is most of the time that we know that it's there. And when it shows up as that prickly, discomfortable or uncomfortable feeling, we want to suppress that. We want to shut it down. And a lot of times it's because we're scared. It's because we don't actually know what to say to the person, or, we don't want to bring something up that's going to be hard or uncomfortable for them. So we just don't say anything at all. And, the consequences of that, depending on how close you are in relationship with that person, sometimes the consequences can be, I worry about this a little bit. I worry about what they think because I haven't said anything. Or maybe it causes us to have sleepless nights where we sit and we contemplate and we think about it and, we're just not able to fall asleep. Or maybe we end up being distracted at work, and that can be a problem for us. But the biggest consequence is that it ends up stealing really precious time from us, especially if the people are really, really close to us. We have this big elephant sitting in the room and we don't actually want to talk about it. And that robs us of time that we could spend doing other things with those people. And, having these tough conversations, it might require a little bit of skill. You might need to figure out how to broach the conversation. It really requires empathy. It requires compassion and caring for the person. And probably the biggest thing that it requires is courage. It requires the courage to say something out loud, to start the conversation. And that's really what I want to talk about today, is how do we start that conversation? And because this journey for me is it's really about getting in touch with myself and getting in tune with the environment around me and the people around me. The first thing I'll say in this 5-point process is it's really helpful to know what it is that you want to accomplish at the start of the conversation. Are you the caregiver or are you the patient? Because that makes a difference on the way that you start the conversation, maybe. Not that the topic isn't the same in some cases, but there are differences that it makes. So, first of all, identifying who you are in the conversation, and then asking yourself, okay, is this conversation just a door opener for me? Is this just giving me the opportunity to broach the subject, to start to open the conversation? Or is it to say, something like, how's treatment going for you? Are you getting what you want out of this? Or is it to start talking about, finances? Or depending on where the person is in their process, is it about talking about, how do you want to approach the end of your life? What do you want to do as we progress in this process? So really knowing, what is it that you want to accomplish as you start the process? And that might take sitting down with a pen and a piece of paper or sitting in contemplation, or inviting whatever spiritual practice into your life that you invite, and just saying, how do I get in touch with that? How do I really identify that? Maybe that requires you personally having a conversation other than with the person that you want to talk to about it, and just exploring some of that stuff. The next thing that I would suggest or recommend is know how you feel as you prepare to go into the conversation. You know what you want to talk about now. You have an idea, and know how you feel about what you want to talk about. If you're talking to the person who's the survivor, and the conversation is about, do you want to continue on with treatment? Or if the conversation is about, I'd like to know what your final wishes are as you, approach the end of your life. Are there things that you want to talk about? Knowing what that stuff is, know how you feel about that. If you have a strong opinion about somebody continuing on with their health care and they say, oh, I'm done with treatment, I don't want to do this anymore, you having a good understanding of how you feel about that is going to be important. And then, allowing space for them to talk and giving them the opportunity to just share open-heartedly, to really listen to what they have to say, to create the space and in the environment that they have the right and the privilege to say whatever it is that they need to say without feeling judged or feeling like you're going to try and talk them out of something. Just creating the space for them, and knowing as you walk into the conversation that this is one time that there are no rights or wrongs. There is just different perspectives, and allowing space for that to be the truth is really, really important. And then when you feel prepared, when you feel like, okay, I know what it is that I want to talk about, and I have a good sense of how I feel about the conversation, then really giving yourself permission to pick the right time. And looking at the circumstances of your life, looking at the circumstances of what's going on in your environment, checking in with your gut check again and saying, all right, is the time now? Do I want to have this conversation before some kind of an event is going to take place? Is there a wedding or a birthday or a holiday that you want to have the conversation before? Is there other people that you want to be present in the conversation? All of that fits into choosing the right time. Is it going to be a family event? Is it going to be private between you and that individual? Do you want medical team to be present for it? So really taking the time to plan and to think about that stuff. Not planning the outcome, just making sure that you're clear on the process and what you want to accomplish. And as you walk through that process, looking at things like circumstances, weddings, birthdays, graduation parties, anything like that might be going on. And then maybe it's, you want to have the conversation before the next health event occurs. And, things are going pretty well right now. So now seems like a good time to have that conversation. So, picking the right time based on the circumstances of your life, and knowing that, nobody else can tell you what the right time is. You're going to know that, and you and the person that you're going to talk to, you're going to navigate through that and figure that out together. And then as you prepare to walk into the conversation, really know that there are going to be emotions present. And sometimes we like to avoid the emotions. We like to pretend that, we're tough and we're strong and that things don't bother us. But that's maybe not the best way to walk into this. You're going to have emotions. They might have emotions, and just allowing for the space, allowing for the time and the space for that to take place. And, if there's silence in the conversation, finding a way to be okay with that silence. Not feeling like you have to manage and navigate and control the whole conversation. Really feeling like it's okay to just sit here and be in space with each other, and giving us time to think about it, right? So those are all part of creating the space and being prepared for the emotions. And then item number 5 in the process is know that this is probably not going to be a one and done. This is not a conversation that you have once and you iron out all the answers and that you figure out all the questions to ask and you have all the solutions picked out. And that's not the way this is going to go. This is a journey. And, we're in this for the long haul. And be prepared that you're going to probably want to have opportunities to revisit this. So don't expect everything to be finished. They talk about life being a journey, not a destination. And this is one time that's probably more true than others. So in preparation for today's episode, I sat and I thought about some of the questions that I've come up with and I've asked other people in the process as I've walked through processes like this with them. And, one of the questions that I ask people sometimes as I'm wanting to start the conversation that feels uncomfortable and awkward is to just be honest with them. I've been thinking about how I might feel if I was in your situation, and this is what comes up for me, and I'm wondering if you'd like to have a conversation about that. I'm wondering if there's things that come up for you that you'd like to talk about. That's one way to approach it. Another way to approach it is, I've been thinking about this, and it made me realize, maybe it made me realize I'm afraid, or it made me realize that I don't like what's happening between us. I don't like what's happening here. I don't like how this is unfolding. I don't like what's going on in my life, and opening the door for some of that sensitivity. Another way that I've approached the conversation is, when you think about approaching the end of your life, I'm wondering what that feels like for you. Do you have unfinished business that you'd like to talk about? Or do you have things that you want to do before the end? Or another way to approach it sometimes is, as you approach this phase of your life, I know that things are changing for you. Are there things that I can do to help make it easier for you? Are there things that you'd like to see happen that aren't happening? Are there things that we could do together that you would like to see? Another question that I ask sometimes is, as you approach this phase of your life, what's the most important thing to you right now? Is it being comfortable? Is it, giving you the best quality of life as you walk through this process? Is it, I just want to be here as long as I possibly can. What is it for you? And asking the question point blank. Asking him, what do you think about when you're in the silence? What do you think about when you wake up in the middle of the night and you're all by yourself? What are some of the things that tickle the back of your mind? So, those are some of the questions. Another thing that I'll do is approach the conversation and say, wow, this is really, really hard. It's uncomfortable and it's awkward. And the way we used to play together in life, it doesn't seem to fit with this anymore. And I'm trying to figure out how to navigate this with you. Are you open to having a conversation with me about it? Can we sit down and talk about this? Is there anything that you'd like to sit down and talk about? So those are some of the ways that I approach the questions, or those are some of the questions that I approach with people. So as I think about summarizing this process, what I would say again is, you know the right time. You know when it's time to have the conversation. Trust your gut. Trust your heart with that. Trust your intuition. And know that the consequences of not having the conversation can be pretty pricey. We lose a lot of precious time. And is that what you want to do? Are you willing and interested in losing that time? And as you prepare for the conversation, the 5 things. Number 1 is know what you want to talk about. Know how you feel about the conversation going into it. Choose the right time to have the conversation. And know in your heart that the right time doesn't necessarily mean it's the perfect time, because there might not ever be a perfect time to approach this conversation. But choose the right time. Item number 4 is, know that there are going to be emotions at play. Recognize and be prepared for the fact that there might be tears. It might be uncomfortable. And just be prepared for that. Know that there's going to be feelings that come up. And then know in your heart of hearts that this is not a one and done. This isn't going to be a one-time event. This is a journey. And you're going to walk through the process. And if you can walk through it with someone that you care about and love, it makes it all the better. So know that it's a process and be present for that process. So if you found any of this information helpful, I would appreciate it if you'd share it on Facebook. That allows other people to find the information and to make it available to them. If there's somebody that you know that could specifically benefit from hearing this information, take the time to share it with them. If you have questions or comments, I would, I invite you to share them on the Facebook page beneath the post, or if it's really private and you're not comfortable sharing it there, absolutely feel free to send me a private message. I answer them as quickly as I can, and it often becomes the topic of conversation for the next show, like it did for this week's episode. And the last thing that I'll leave you with is, there are ways to release the past or the presence of what's going on. And we can find ways to embrace whatever our new normal is. And we can thrive no matter what's going on. So I invite you once again to step into your life and to explore how to release and embrace and thrive. And until we actually have a chance to meet again, I hope life treats you well. Thanks for being here today. Have a great day.